All right, here we go. About to be lambasted on the internet by Alabama fans.
Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. Max Chadwick alongside PJ Clark, Tate, Sigworth, and Nick Merriam. We're hyped for this one, guys. The top 10 running backs in the 2021 draft.
Everyone's favorite position.
Turn us up.
We love it. Also the top 10 overall players in the 2021 NFL draft. We just ran through our top 10 quarterbacks. Again, we're going to break down the top 10 running backs on our Big Board 2.0, which is being posted this week. So make sure you check that out on our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Boom or Bust Draft. Obviously, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast. Check out the website down below. And please like and subscribe to the channel and comment any questions you have for our mailbag or email us, boomerbustdraftshow@gmail.com. Also, please support us by going to Manscaped, the best in below-the-waist grooming, precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments, providing you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped, trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement, 2,000,004. Join the movement for all your below-the-waist grooming needs. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code BOOM or BUST. That's no spaces, all caps, BOOM or BUST, for 20% off your purchase and free shipping. So start off with number 10, guys, of our running backs, and that is Mississippi State's KYLIN Hill, who's number 141 on our second version of our big board. Tate, what do you think about KYLIN Hill?
Well, he's RB10, so, I'm not, he's good. He's definitely fine. He can withstand tackles because of his frame. I like his vision at finding the gaps of the offensive line and then going through them. But there are obviously downsides. He's a fine receiver, totally average. I think he only runs with like one speed. I never really see him like turn it up a notch. On the tape I've watched, I don't think he's the most explosive, but I think he's fine. I don't think he's that good. I think on my board, let me just check real quick. He's RB11. So kind of like, a second running back in a communal group would be my projection to the NFL for KYLIN Hill.
KYLIN Hill is like borderline electric, like a very fun watch. I love watching him play. I don't know if he's going to be any good, which is kind of defeats the purpose of all of this. He will definitely like have some success at the NFL. I think he's too talented not to, but he's got some weird, like, he had a very weird year this year. Mm-hmm. A great year in 2019, and then disagree with Mike Leach a lot in this new system. Didn't have a great first 3 games, and then just decided, hey, I'm out. Like, I'm going to go declare for the draft. It's kind of a weird year. I would have liked to see him more, but Mississippi State turned into a dumpster fire after that week 1 game where KJ Costello threw for 600 yards.
Costello should have opted out, too, with KYLIN Hill.
Yeah, so I guess if you're throwing the ball that much, you're not going to run the ball if you're KYLIN Hill, so I guess it's good to leave. But off the 2019, I thought he could have declared last year, but I mean, he's electric. He's going to be a good back in a committee. I think he's like a top of the 4th round kind of guy for me.
He is a third down back, I think, at the next level. I think there are the traits to end up being more of a pass catcher than he was in college. He has that kind of dense build that you're looking for more in running backs, less of those like big one-cut guys we saw before, like the Walter Paytons and Adrian Petersons. So he's going to find a spot. The thing about this position is that, he might go day 3, late day 3, and he has as good of a chance of succeeding as most other guys at this position just because of what it is. It's running backs. They're all the same. So, he's fine. Cool. Whatever.
Yeah, RB9 for me. Early 5th round grade for me, too. Explosive runner. He broke a tackle on over a quarter of his carries in his career. Only played 3 games this year, but he looked a lot better as a receiver. Had 23 catches for 234 yards. That's the most he's had in his career. Probably the best running back in this entire class at protecting the football. Only 1 fumble on 520 career touches, and that 1 fumble was in his true freshman season back in 2017. He's a freelancer. He's not going to take what's there. He's going to bounce out the runs, which is not going to work in the NFL. Not really a patient runner. He looked better as a receiver this year, but again, only 3 games, basically a non-factor. 10% drop rate, inconsistent hands. Not going to add anything as a pass blocker. He won't be a starting back, but I think he can be an effective number 2 running back. And I think he can play in a gap or zone blocking scheme, too, so he's scheme versatile. So number 9 on the running backs list, Ramondre Stevenson from Oklahoma. Nick, what do you think about him?
This guy's so much fun to watch. I mean, he's just a tank. He's just a tank.
Mhm.
6', 246. I think people underestimate his ability to pass catch, which I think is what makes him somewhat valuable as a draft pick. The issues I've had with him is that I think a lot of his broken tackles and ability to kind of elevate your run game come at the second level. There's 3 backs in this draft I think really got a lot of their yardage by just having huge holes to run through, and he's one of those guys. When he had guys in front of him, he couldn't create much on his own. He would get kind of stopped for like a yard. He'd always fall forward because he's huge. But he, I think, is one of those guys who's very going to be dependent on where he ends up, and I think needs a good O-line to produce. You need to get him going downhill.
This is another guy that is just capitalizing off his. There's a couple of guys that had a big end to 2020 and are just like going full throttle to capitalize on it. In the bowl game against Florida, he had 186 yards and a touchdown. And yeah, it's Florida, so take this with a grain of salt, the Florida defense. But he played well, and so did all of Oklahoma. But he was good this year. He was a steady presence for a freshman quarterback in Spencer Rattler, which I think is underappreciated. I'm a little lower on him than I think the group is. I don't necessarily love him. I think KYLIN Hill might have a higher ceiling. But if you're just looking for like a bowling ball running back, you could definitely do worse than Rhamondre Stevenson.
Yeah, and Nick mentioned the 6', 246, which is what everybody thought he was, but then he came at the Senior Bowl and weighed in at 5'11", 227. I don't know, if it's his playing weight or something, but he might be smaller than previously expected. A lot of things I like about Rhamondre Stevenson. He's my RB8. I think he's good at like most things. I think he can help out as a pass blocker. I think he can help out as a receiver. And I think as a runner, there's just a lot of things to like too. He had a good Senior Bowl. So yeah, I mean, I think he could be like a low tier number 1 down the road.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention he was number 110 on the second version of our big board. RB7 for me, got a 4th round grade on him. You mentioned he's a tank, but besides being that big, though, he's got really great feet. He moves really well for his size. Broke tackles very efficient, 31%. He broke a tackle on his career attempts. Pretty good receiver when he was used. Had 18 catches this year for over 200 yards. One of the best pass protecting backs in his class. Uses his size really well there. But there's really only 1 year of tape to go off of because he was behind Kennedy Brooks. He was behind Trey Sermon on the depth chart for his whole career until this year when Brooks opted out and Sermon transferred. He doesn't really try to run over guys despite having a size advantage. 3 fumbles on only 193 career touches, so not great at protecting the football. And the O-line at Oklahoma was dominant. So he ran behind a really good O-line. I think he's scheme dependent. You wanted him a gap scheme, but he can be a lead back if he continues this level of play. But I think he's likely a really good number 2 and a short yardage back. So let's go over to our number 8 running back, Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech, number 109 on the big board 2.0. PJ, you're raising your fist, man. You love Khalil Herbert.
I do love Khalil Herbert. I mean, had a great start to 2020 after, twiddling his thumbs in Kansas, transfers to Virginia Tech and has a fire start to 2020. And then goes to the Senior Bowl and has a great week in one-on-one specifically. He was an amazing pass protector in the Senior Bowl. Really showed really great blocking, which I loved. I don't know if he's much of a receiver, but if he can pass protect like he showed in Mobile, I don't think he's going to have a problem getting snaps at the next level. I think this guy's like, listen, if he plays like he played the first couple of weeks of 2020, I think he's a low-end number 1. Then again, running backs are all a dart throw, so who knows? But the pass protecting is the key for me here. I think he was so good at the Senior Bowl, and I want to see it continue.
Yeah, you wipe out most of his college years because Kansas is bad, and he only had 1 year at Virginia Tech. So
That's true.
You're just kind of going on 1 year. And yeah, you mentioned the pass blocking. He, in the game, if you look on the tape over the year, his pass blocking was like fine, but then he comes at the Senior Bowl and was like one of the best ones there.
Just blowing people up for fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. He's a patient, smart runner who attacks holes. But the big issue here is, can he catch? He really didn't at Virginia Tech or over his whole college career. So can that translate to the NFL? Does he have the skills, and can he do that? Because if he can, I think we could be talking low tier number 1.
Yeah, the pass catching production wasn't really there. He was great as a blocker at the Senior Bowl, but on tape, a little inconsistent. There are some footwork issues. Not really. He needs development. I think if you line him up and he blocks a guy, he's very physical. He'll pop guys, but I think he needs to get a little more development in that department. Again, I think this is kind of a guy similar to KYLIN Hill. He has the right body type to be a third down guy. If you can learn how to pass catch, you can learn how to pass protect. another one of these denser bodies. A little different because he's a really good one-cut runner. His acceleration is electric. He goes from 0 to 4 immediately. I don't know that he's going to blow you away with his speed, but he can just run right by you with that burst. And because of that, I think he's a good pick mid-round, late in this draft.
Yeah, he's RB10 for me. I got a late 5th round grade on him. Tough man to bring down, man. Only 5'9", but he's 212 pounds. Really stocky build. Broke a tackle on 20% of his attempts this year. Really good vision too. A good speed. I mean, could run in the 4.4s, maybe low 4.5s. Really great at protecting the rock too. Only 2 career fumbles on 509 touches. But like you guys mentioned, not going to contribute on passing downs. Only 10 catches this year, which was a career high for him. Also, not a great. He looked great in the Senior Bowl, but not really. Like Nick said, on tape, he did not a great pass protector. Even though he did put Tough Borland in the dirt at the Senior Bowl. Age, big question mark. Redshirt senior this year. Was great last year in a limited role, but this is the first year as a feature back. Scheme dependent. You kind of want him in a zone blocking scheme. I think he's a good enough runner to be a lead back, but I think what holds him back from being a lead back is what he can do in the pass game. So let's go over to number 7, Trey Sermon from Ohio State. Tate, your guy, number 103 on the Big Board 2.0. What do you think about Trey Sermon?
Also kind of like Khalil Herbert, not much of a receiver, at least on tape. But he's got great vision. I think his burst is awesome. And he just paired with a refusal to go down. If you just watch Trey Sermon, he refuses to get tackled. And also, since he transferred from Oklahoma and kind of just rode the bench and didn't have that much, load, there's a lot of life left in his legs. You look at the guys like, Jonathan Taylor had 400 carries in the span of 2 years. Yes, he had a good rookie year, but, the longevity of Jonathan Taylor is still remained to be seen. Trey Sermon is a guy that has a lot of life left in his legs and could be in the league for a long time.
So this is a guy much like KYLIN Hill or not KYLIN Hill, Rhamondre Stevenson, who's just capitalizing on 3 good games right at the end here and is just going for it. Which, listen, more power to you if that's what you want to do. Shredded Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. The only reason Ohio State won that game, and then had almost 200 yards against Clemson. Yeah, they were running the clock out at the end or whatever, but he was just bowling over people. Like Tate said, a refusal to go down, will not get tackled. The one concern for me, I'm not a big Master Teague fan. It took him a while to get the starting job. He kept on splitting carries until pretty much the Michigan State game, their last game before the Big Ten championship. He became the full-time back. So yeah, workload might not be a ton, but I would have liked to see him take that job earlier. But he showed what he can do, especially against Northwestern and Clemson.
I think he's more capable catching out of the backfield than we give him credit for. He's not going to run routes, but he's going to catch swing passes and stuff like that. He showed a little bit of that in the playoff against Clemson. One of these guys you watch on film and you're like, damn, he just doesn't get tackled. Like, guy just drives his legs forever and just keeps going. And then you flip on the tape after watching the games, and you're like, he's actually faster than I thought he would be as well. The guy, I believe, runs in the 4.5s is what they're saying, which was impressive to me. He ran by a couple guys as well against Clemson, showed some speed. Another guy that I think really took advantage at times of some dominant O-line play, and so that's going to be a transition to the NFL where you really just don't have O-lines opening up easy holes for guys to burst through and get through the second level. But at the second level, he's just a nasty runner. He's got some marsh on to him. He's going to be great if we get him in a good run offense. I mean, same with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, RB8 for me, late 4th round grade. Good size, 6'1", 215. Like you guys mentioned, the tackle, he's a consistent tackle breaker. He broke a tackle on 32% of his 452 career carries. His balance, I think, is absurd. Like you guys mentioned, 3-week stretch where he was ridiculously dominant. He ran for 636 yards and over 9 yards per carry against Michigan State, Northwestern, and Clemson. Broke a combined 27 tackles in those 3 games. I think if he was healthy against Alabama in that national championship game, I'm not saying it would have been that Ohio State would have won, but I think it would have been a lot closer because they really were relying on him a lot. Protected the ball really well. Only 3 fumbles on 500 career touches. Pretty solid pass protector, but he doesn't add as much as a receiver. Only 48 career catches in 4 years. Ran by some really good old lines at Oklahoma and Ohio State. I think I want him in a zone scheme. He can be a starter, but you need a good receiving back to sub in on passing downs. Speaking of receiving backs, go over number 6, Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis, number 79 on our big board. Nick, what do you think about Kenneth Gainwell?
So this is the type of guy who could end up playing wide receiver at the next level if he wanted to. He's lined up in the slot. He's run bubble screens. He's run slants. He's run out routes. He's a really talented pass catcher. I don't know if he's a great running back. He's a little bit skinny for the position, I think. He's built more like a receiver, again, to be honest with you. But he's versatile. He's done a lot of motion in that Clemson offense, which I think is a great offense for producing playmakers just because of how much creative stuff they do that translates to the NFL. And I think somebody who's creative on the offensive side of the ball in this draft is going to find Kenneth Gainwell and use him as a hybrid type, motion him in and out of the backfield. He's going to be a great player in terms of just giving defenses different looks and kind of messing with what they're trying to do.
He might be the opposite Antonio Gibson, where Antonio Gibson went from wide receiver to running back. I think Kenny Gainwell might end up playing wide receiver, as Nick just said, but he's talented with the ball in his hands. I mean, he led the conference last year. He opted out this year, but he led the conference last year in yards from scrimmage. Like, he's dynamic as a receiver, and I thought he was decent as a running back. I don't know if he's a starting running back in the NFL, but I think the pass catching ability is going to get him snaps on the field, like Nick said, in the slot, out of the backfield. You can get super creative with him, just like you can for Antonio Gibson, and that worked out in Washington this year for sure. But I mean, Kenny Gainwell, I don't know if he's going to be an early down, every down starting back type guy, but there's so much value to having the guy who can go play the slot and also carry and do this like Cordero Patterson thing. There's so much value to those types of guys in the NFL in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick and PJ hit it on the head there. I won't go too long. He's 5'11", 190. I think he's got great power for his size. He's not the biggest guy, but he just bounces off blocks sometimes. He's a great receiver, like you guys mentioned. But the Memphis offense, it's not, an NFL-style offense. So I don't think he's ever going to be a first running back. I think, he's a third down running back. Use him in the slot, like you guys talked about. Use him as a different weapon, which relies on being drafted to the right team. If he gets drafted to some lazy, typical traditional play caller, then I don't think he's going to be a good fit there. But if he can get to a more creative play caller and, be drawn up in some different schemes, I think that's where Kenny Gainwell succeeds.
Yeah, he's RB4 for me, mid-third round pick. He and DEMETRIC FELTON, who we'll get to in a little bit, might be the two best receiving backs in this class, man. Gainwell, like you said, legitimately plays slot receiver, route running agility, elite for a running back. Great hands, only 3 career drops on 60 catchable passes. Can juke out a defender or run through him. Broke a tackle on 27% of his touches last year. Maybe the best pass protecting back in the class, too. He won't leave the field on passing downs. But he's pretty small, like Tate mentioned, 5'11", 191. That's 23 pounds lighter than the average running back, despite being the average height. How will he handle NFL hits when they're not in the American Athletic Conference? Opted out of this year after only 1 year of tape, really. I think I want him in a gap scheme that heavily involves our running backs in the passing game. I think he could be a lead back as a runner/receiver. So top 5 now. Number 5, Michael Carter, the first of the UNC running backs. Number 77 on our big board. PJ, what do you think about Michael Carter?
Speaking of guys who finished strong, 308 yards in the finale for him against Miami before leaving before the bowl game, which if I ran for 300 yards, I would probably not play in a bowl game either. Michael Carter might be the second biggest winner of the Senior Bowl to me. The first we're going to talk about in a second, but especially in the game, he was the best player on the field. He ran all over the place, and I think he was an improved receiver, which is something that he did enough of at UNC, but didn't do a ton of. He had a couple games. The game against Syracuse actually was one of his best receiving games in the opener, but the combination of him and Javonte Williams was the best running back tandem in the country this year. And I think they are both day one starting running backs, plug and play at the next level.
Yeah, he's only 5'7", but he's 200 pounds. He's kind of an interesting frame. I think that holds him back from ever being a true number 1 in the NFL, but I think as a number 2, I really love Michael Carter. He's a very good runner, like PJ mentioned, despite the size, but he's also a really good receiving back. So I think there's a ton of different offenses that Michael Carter can fit in. If you want to push him into like a low tier number 1, maybe we can talk about that. But he's got a really nice acceleration, really good speed. I think that helps him out as a runner and as a receiver.
I think he's the best pass protector in the class. He had a rough game against Notre Dame because I think maybe the size came up on him and he got popped a couple times. But he, in terms of the technique, is just brilliant at setting his feet, scanning, and finding a guy to hit in pass protection. I think he's a capable pass catcher. And because of that, I think he's going to end up being a very good third down back in the next level. He's got some Chris Thompson to him. He's just a very polished running back. You look at these UNC guys, and they do such a good job at all the things that coaches want to see. They don't dance in the backfield. They hit the hole quick. They get where they need to be, and then at the next level, they're looking for space. They're not looking to just joke people. I had so much fun watching this guy on tape. I think he's going to go lower than I have him. I have him as like a late second-round pick, but he, for my money, is one of these guys, I think, just because of being learning what he did in North Carolina and how well they coach their backs, is going to be productive for the NFL in any system, probably.
Yeah, RB5 for me. I had an early 4th-round grade on him. Smaller side, 5'8", 199, but he doesn't run like it. He broke a tackle on 28% of his career attempts. Ability to start and stop is excellent. He's able to cut on a dime and accelerate. He's a good receiving back. He averaged nearly 11 yards per catch this year on 25 catches. Ran really well despite the North Carolina O-line being below average in run blocking. Does a good job protecting the football. Only 4 fumbles on almost 600 career touches. Good pass protector too, even though he's undersized. And although he runs like he's bigger, the size still, like Tate said, question mark at 199 pounds and 5'8". He's scheme versatile though. I think he could play in a gap or a zone scheme. He can be a lead back, but I think he would work really well in a committee like he did this year with Javonte Williams. So number 4, DEMETRIC Felton from UCLA. Tate, he's the number 75 player on our big board. What do you think about DEMETRIC Felton?
Why is he in this video? I think that's the big one. I thought this was the wide receiver video. We're talking about DEMETRIC Felton. But yeah, so he's UCLA used him this year as a running back before he used him as a wide receiver. So that's why he's in this video. But if you're lining him up as a wide receiver, then like, yes. But because he's a running back, is a bit lower here in terms of value. He's an amazing route runner. He's a dynamic weapon. We're talking like if you miss on Kadarius, if you miss on Rondale, then, Felton on day 2 would be an awesome pick for an interesting play caller. So I don't think he's a running back. He's not going to be, your first and second down running back. But guys, the dynamic weapons that we talked about, the Kenny Gainwell type people, the Kadarius Toney type people, that's who this is.
So here's your big winner of the Senior Bowl. The number 1 improved. This guy's a running back, technically, and ran better routes than like every wide receiver there, and just like lost real quarterbacks. And like I don't know how he did it, but I'm all in. Like the chips are to the middle of the table. I think I have him as the first player in round 3, just because I think he's so dynamic. Just put him in the slot and like let it work. Tate said it. I don't think he's a running back. Like I don't know how he's gonna do between the tackles, but he's got, again, much like Kenny Gainwell, except better, I think, this time, because he's actually a wide receiver, first of all. And you can put him in the backfield, he's still gonna be able to gain yards. So this is just a guy, he's just a football player and a guy I want on my team.
I don't think this is a guy that should be lining up in the backfield at all. Like, I just think if you are drafting this guy to be a running back, Kenny Gainwell, like, okay, he's a motion in and out mismatch type guy. This guy is just, he's wide receiver 8 for me. I have him as a second-round pick. Like, he's not a running back. Like, whatever. But he showed in the Senior Bowl. In the Senior Bowl, I think we don't give enough credit for how, how well players who produce there end up playing in the NFL, just because there's a lot of, things to take away in terms of learning the NFL style of play there, playing against effectively NFL competition. He was dominant. He won intermediate, he won deep, he showed speed, quickness, he won some possession catches, and then you're wondering if he was going to be able to do it in the game, and he caught like a quick in route and just juked a corner for a touchdown. He was absolutely electric as a wide receiver. I think he can play slot and outside. I don't know why we're even having this discussion. He's not a running back, and he's more valuable than basically all these players because he's a wide receiver, but I have to talk about him as a running back because these guys said so, whatever.
Yeah, he's quote-unquote RB6 for me, early 4th-round grade. If you're drafting him, it's for that versatility, man. Former slot receiver who, honestly, I think he will still play there. Unguardable, like you guys hit on it in the Senior Bowl in the one-on-ones. Really shifty. He makes cuts on a dime, accelerates. He put on about 15 pounds this year to get to a more running back size and still maintain that quickness. But, yeah, he's not a bell cow running back. Still raw as a runner. Vision is suspect, but he goes down pretty easily when defenders get their hands on him. But again, it's hard to get their hands on him when he's that shifty. Got to pack on another 15 pounds. If he is going to be that every down back, I don't think he will be. I think he'll be that slot receiver. Only about 230 carries in his career. Not great in pass pro. If you're going to play him at running back, put him in a gap scheme in an offense that utilizes the running backs heavily in the passing game. But like you guys hit on it, he's probably a slot receiver in the NFL. Number 3, this is where it gets the interesting. Najee Harris for us, who a lot of people have as the clear top back but he's number 3 and number 58 on our big board. Nick, what is holding back Najee Harris from being in that next tier?
Buckle up.
All right. Well, first let's just say
boy.
he's a 3-down back. He's a great athlete. If you don't have a 3-down back, he plugs in nicely for you. But he's 6'2", 230 pounds. That is your 1990s running back. We're in a league today where if you're big, you can get chopped down. We don't want guys who can just make people miss in the backfield. It's all about how the O-line plays, what you can do at the second level, and can you catch passes, and can you pass protect. He's not going to be bowling through people, every other play because the athletes aren't as good on defense anymore. The defense is full of athletes these days. People are going to be able to tackle this guy. They're not just going to get juked every time they one-on-one versus this guy. He's a great athlete. He'll fit in with a system that has a good offense. Is it the offensive line? But again, what are the things that matter with running backs today? Can they pass catch? Yeah, he can a little bit. He had some drops issues. He's catching out of the backfield. You're not lining him up as a wide receiver. He's done some motioning. That's good. You like to see that. He is a horrific pass protector. He looks completely uncomfortable doing it. And if he's a 3-down back that you want lining up on every play to kind of fit in that position because you just don't have a guy, that is a huge worry, because if you're the Dolphins taking this guy at 18 and Tua is a guy who doesn't deal well with pressure and Najee Harris is on his butt because he can't pass protect, well, Tua's going to break his hip again, and we don't want that. So, he's not bad. Don't get me wrong. He's a great athlete. He runs a 4.5. He can hurdle people, which is why everyone likes him in the first place. But this is the type of talent that we see so often in the NFL. There's so many guys like this. You can go out and pay a guy $5 million a year to find a guy like this. You shouldn't be spending a top 30 pick on this type of guy.
I don't even know where to go from that. I mean, we're just eviscerating Najee. I'll take the positives back. I think he's like the most patient runner. This guy just like waits for holes to develop and hits them when they do. I think it's also a testament to having the best offensive line in the country this year. I mean, that helps. That doesn't not help. I think he's good out of the backfield. I think he's got, they throw these wheel routes, Tua especially, through the wheel routes to him in the red zone. That just were like unstoppable. He would go up and moss guys. But I mean, it was surprising to see him come back after last year. I would say it worked out, won the national championship, got the highlight, top 5 in Heisman, everything you want. I think it just comes down to patience. And if you don't have the offensive line that is going to allow holes to develop and give him the time in the backfield to let things shift and let the pieces fall where they may, I am worried about him. But somebody will draft him in the first round. It's just, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think we're going to echo the same thing here is Najee Harris is not a first-round draft pick. None of the guys in the video that we're talking about are first-round draft picks. That's just a spoiler. He's not a great pass blocker, like you guys mentioned, but we don't need to spend time on that. I think he's a good wide receiver, or a good receiver, not a wide receiver. Good route runner. I think he's the patience and the explosiveness that PJ talked about. I think he's really got to like as a first and second down back. I mean, I love that. And he can break tackles outside hurdling dudes. It's not just the hurdling. I think he's capable of that. So I think, he can be a first, second down back. It's, can he pass block and help out third downs? I guess is the bigger question.
Yeah, he's RB2 for me. I've got an early to mid-second round grade on him. To me, any of the top 3 running backs, in my opinion, could be in any order, and I'd be okay with it. He's massive. He's 6'2", 230. Nose for the end zone, too. 26 touchdowns on the ground this year. That's 5 more than any other back. Also had 4 receiving touchdowns, too. He uses that size advantage in the passing game. He has the catch radius of a wide receiver, basically. He goes up and mosses linebackers and even some corners and safeties. Maybe the best hands in this running back class, only 3 career drops and 83 catchable balls. Absolute load to bring down. Broke a tackle on 32% of his touches. Uses his size to shrug defenders off. Loose hips, too, to juke him out, too. Only 3 fumbles on over 700 touches, but he's slow. He's not going to be a home run hitter. Most linebackers are going to be able to chase him down. Ran behind some really dominant offensive lines. Also, defenses, they were worried about guys like Tua, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle. Like, how will he look in worse situations? So, not a great pass protector despite his size. PJ, you had this comp. I want to give you credit for it. I think it's perfect. Le'Veon Bell, man. Patient runners, bigger backs, slow, but they're really good receivers, good vision, great patience, can make defenders miss by either going through them or around them. Also, a knack for spectacular hurdles, too. Najee, in my opinion, bell cow back that can be a plus receiver, too. I think he works best in his zone blocking scheme. So I really like Najee Harris a lot. Number 2, who was everyone's RB1, and we were like, there's no way nobody takes over him as RB1, but it happened. Travis Etienne, who's number 39 on our big board 2.0 from Clemson. PJ, what do you think about Travis Etienne?
I don't know what there is to say about Travis Etienne. I'm sad about how the Travis Etienne era ended, because it kind of did not end well. He struggled a lot, especially at the back half of the season. The Notre Dame game, I think, threw him into a tailspin. The first Notre Dame game threw him into a tailspin. But home run hitter. I mean, just get the ball in his hands and things are going to happen. I don't think there's any one scheme that he's going to fit in, much like some of these guys. You know, they need a zone scheme, especially at the back half of this list. Travis Etienne can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. The thing we all keep coming back to, we all tweeted it at once that one time, is Alvin Kamara. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. Get the ball to him, especially outside the tackles, pitch plays, little dump offs, screens, whatever. Open space, impossible to bring down. And he's not gonna, you can't, he's not a shifty guy. He can't get past you in an elevator, but if he has space, he's just so dynamic. I feel bad that he's not RB1, but he's not. And I feel bad that his career ended the way it did, with a lot of meh games there at the end. But I mean, this guy's going to be an NFL superstar. Still not a first-round pick, though.
Yeah, agree with the last sentence there from PJ. Superstar, but not a first-round pick. He's actually still my RB1 on my personal big board. I'm still, on the hill, flag in the ground. I'm dying on that hill. I just think he's so explosive, so dynamic. Everything that PJ mentioned, just get the ball in his hand. In 2019, he broke a tackle on every 2 touches, which is just like stupid. This year, he led the running back class in yards. So he's an unreal runner. He's an excellent receiver. A lot of things to like about Travis Etienne in the modern NFL. The Alvin Kamara comp fits, I think, on many levels. Still RB1. I'm still sticking on this hive. I think he can be, a 3-down back in the NFL.
I went back and forth on him and our actual RB1 a couple of times in the past week. Tough decision, because I think this guy fits today's NFL. The Kamara comp's great. The difference, I think, being Kamara's a little shiftier. Etienne's going to run he will run in the 4.3s because he's going to probably make his time even lower. Maybe he'll run in the 4.2s because of how these things run now. But I mean, explosive with his speed. He's the best, for my money, pass catcher out of the backfield. I don't know if he has the best hands in this draft, but he just makes guys. He's just quick. He's able to run those routes out of the backfield. I think you could line up as receiver a little bit too. I'd like to see them try that with him in the next level, but he's explosive and like Kamara again, really strong lower body. If you square this guy up and he's able to kind of get crunched down and push you backwards, he'll just run over you. He's going to be tough to tackle the next level. And he will score on some big run plays because he's got that speed that just you can't replicate. Not even Najee Harris, who's going to run in the 4.5. Sorry.
Yeah, he's RB3, early to mid-second round. He would have been RB1 last year if he declared. He wasn't as dominant this year as years past, but I think a lot of that should be chalked up to 4 new starters on that Clemson O-line, which was not good. Much less space to work with. His average yards before contact dropped a full yard from last year and 2 yards from 2018. Still, home run waiting to happen, though. Acceleration is unreal. Runs through arm tackles. Broke a tackle in 30% of his career touches. Because he wasn't efficient as a runner as years past, he became a much better receiver, which was his big drawback heading into this year. He was actually the best receiving back in the country. He led all running backs with 588 receiving yards. That's 154 more than any other back. Still, though, he tries to bounce runs out too often. He's not going to take what's there. Also, hasn't been relied on too heavily with defenses keying in on stopping Trevor Lawrence on the aerial attack. I think Mike Renner pointed out he hasn't had a game with 20 or more carries since like 2018. Scheme versatile, though. Can work in a gap or zone scheme. Get him the ball as a runner, receiver. Good things are going to happen. He's going to be a great running back in this league. Alvin Kamara comp, I think, is perfect. So number 1, the guy who came out of nowhere this year, number 37 on our big board, Javonte Williams from UNC. Tate, what do you think about Javonte Williams?
I don't think there's anything he does really poorly. He took a step up this year as a pass blocker, and the thing I think everybody here is going to talk about is he just breaks a freakish amount of tackles.
Mm-hmm.
He is so elusive. The stat I mentioned about Travis Etienne breaking a tackle every 2 touches in 2019, that number was actually 2.37. Every 2.37 touches, Travis broke one in 2019. This year, Javonte broke one every 2.15. So this guy is as good at breaking tackles as anybody in this draft class. And in the modern NFL, just getting like these athletes that can just avoid tackles, I mean, he's not a first-round pick, but I think, if we're going to draft a running back, Javonte Williams would be that guy.
I'm at like a loss for words talking about Javonte Williams. I don't know what he does poorly. Tate just nailed it. If we want to talk about, he gets yards on every carry. Like there's no tackle for loss. There's just put his head down and run. He will go over you. He will go through you. He will go around you. He will be able to catch the ball. He is the home run hitter, maybe not the same speed as Etienne, but he is impossible to tackle. He gets to the line of scrimmage on every single play, which I think, especially in the NFL, is something to be accounted for. Drawbacks, UNC was kind of loaded this year. You had 2 good wide receivers. You had 2 good running backs. You had a great quarterback. There's a lot going on. You had a decent offensive line. What is it like when it's all on you? But he was the best running back in college football this year. Like you got to take the shot on this guy early second round. Like it's totally fine.
Again, North Carolina backs have been extremely polished. He's technically good at his pass protection. He runs pretty nice routes. I think he can catch to the backfield. I think he hits the hole. He doesn't dance a whole lot. He just gets in there and gets you at least 2 yards and more if he's going to break tackles. Acceleration is excellent. We talk about amongst ourselves many times, and you'll probably hear this if you listen to anybody talk about running backs these days. How do you elevate your offense as a running back? Well, either do it in the passing game by pass protecting, catching passes, or you have to have freakish athleticism, not just Najee Harris athleticism, like 4.4 speed and also 260 pounds like Derrick Henry to be able to break multiple tackles in every play, which is why Derrick Henry is really the only guy who could do this. Well, Javonte Williams basically broke the broken tackle stat. Like it was just ridiculous. He broke a tackle on like every single play this year, and that just doesn't happen. And so, translating to the NFL, if he can do that, yeah, he's easily a number 1 back in the league, and could be dominant even if he can continue to do that.
Yeah, he's RB1 for me, early second round pick. Like you guys hit on, the special tackle breaking ability. He runs so hard. He broke a tackle on 48% of his attempts this year, which broke the PFF record. He had 76 broken tackles, which were the most in the country. Great size too, 5'10", 220. That's what you want in a running back. Plus receiver, he had 24 catches and 276 yards this year, receiving yards. Good pass protector too. Like I mentioned with Michael Carter, the UNC O-line was good in pass protection, but not good in run blocking. And Javonte's still arguably the best running back in the country this past season. Good receiver out of the backfield, but he dropped 3 of his 27 catchable passes this year. Hands are a little suspect. That's the only real con I could come up with Javonte Williams. And really, in that, it's also, can he be a bell cow back? Because like you mentioned, they got really good receivers, Sam Howell, quarterback, and also he's basically split time with Michael Carter this year, but I think he can be. He's scheme versatile, can excel in a gap or zone scheme. Draft him as your feature back, and he will almost assuredly be a great tackle breaker and one of the top running backs at the next level. So those are our top 10 running backs in this year's draft. Of course, be sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Boom or Bust Draft because we're posting our big board, the top 100, 150 players. And there are a lot of running backs on this list, so make sure you guys see where they are and where the rest of the players are. We're going to do more of these videos soon. Please go to manscaped.com. Use promo code BOOMERBUST, no spaces, all caps, to get 20% off your purchase and free shipping. So for PJ Clark, Tate Sigworth, and Nick Merriam, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.